snapshot, let's welcome in Ravi Kailas, Chairman and CEO of Mytrah Energy. Mytrah has just commissioned 210 megawatts of wind energy capacity, and this is as good a time as any to welcome Mr. Kailas. So I know you have a busy schedule and appreciate your time here on NDTV Profit. Let's just kick off our discussion today about the latest commissioning, 210 megawatts of wind energy capacity. So, where does that take your capacity on the wind side now?
Thank you very much for having me on the show. We currently have 825 megawatts that are operating, and we expect to add another 90 megawatts or so during the course of the season. So we should be close to about 1,000 megawatts very shortly.
And what about the corresponding PPAs for this? Can you share some detail on that?
So all of our wind projects have PPAs between 20 and 25 years, and they are spread across 7 different states in India: Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, and Madhya Pradesh. So we are in almost all the wind regions of India. And these PPAs are long-term PPAs, and the price is been preset for these 20 or 25 years.
Okay. What about the solar portfolio? Because what one has noticed that Mytrah is really building that piece up as well. So what capacity levels are you at?
So we have just started building our solar portfolio, and we have recently won bids for 425 megawatts in Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, and Punjab. And we generally have between 12 and 15 months to execute those projects.
Comment on what's happening on the bidding side, because there is a group that will say that in India, in particular, the bidding is far too aggressive, and increasingly, solar power generators like Mytrah are beginning to say we're going to wait and watch and take a very selective approach on this. Is that fair?
I think that's very fair, and I think that because the industry itself is very new, and the bids may have been informed by more non-market considerations. I mean, to set not just the headline price of this 4 rupees 50 paise or 4 rupees 34 paise that we see, but in reality, we're talking of a fixed price over 25 years, which means that in the year 2026 and in the year 2036 or in the year 2041, we will still be selling power at 4 rupees 10 paise or 4 rupees 30 paise or 4 rupees 50 paise, while even at a moderate rate of inflation, we're talking about the power being purchased at that time on the margin at maybe 40 rupees or 50 rupees. So I think that for either the distribution companies or the states to push prices down or to create the environment to push prices down to such low levels may actually be harmful to the industry itself.
Mr. Kailas, I don't want to put you in a spot, but how is this going to shape up? I mean, you know, what's going to happen that so that you know there are more producers on board at a price point that they find reasonable, given that this is a long-term horizon commitment that they're making?
I think market forces will shape it. There are few elements that go into this. One is the availability of equity, and the more important is the availability of debt. And as people win these bids and we go out to lenders for raising debt and debt in this case, I think we're going to run into significant roadblocks to try and scale to this enormous target that we have of building 175 gigawatts over the next 6 or 7 years. I mean, one of the single biggest constraints for the industry in India, especially the renewable industry in India, is that we still have to stay within the same balance sheet of our banks, of the banks in India, because we are talking about long-term infrastructure finance. If you take the hedge cost and the international rate for debt, it comes to pretty much the same as what an Indian bank would offer. So, and we don't have a very deep or highly developed debt capital market, which is pretty much the traditional way of developing infrastructure projects almost anywhere else So I think that as the market evolves and as more and more bidders go back to the lenders, I think there would be a little more realization that these prices are not necessarily completely viable. And I think that we must also keep certain margins. I mean, we make all these projections saying that this project will give a certain rate of return. But in reality, there are many other risks in India that we need to take into account. Like, for example, the interest rates are all floating interest rates, what we're talking about. So 5 years ago when we started, the rates were closer to 13%. And we've been very fortunate that rates came down to 9 or 10% now. But if it moves the other way, it can have a significant impact on return to equity investors. So these are all considerations that will probably inform the price of bidding in the next rounds.
Are there comparable complexities on tariffs in the wind portfolio?
Yes, there are. The wind portfolio operates slightly differently because the availability of wind is a big determinant there. As far as solar is concerned, broadly across the state, you have very similar radiation levels, but wind, there are significant differences. The capital cost of wind also can be very different depending on what technology we choose, what type of terrain is available there. But in solar, it's almost similar, across all projects and across most states in India. So there are a little more complexities in wind. Wind also requires a longer execution cycle, and solar is a little shorter execution cycle. So, and wind is a little more well understood. So it has been around for a while. So it's easier to set these projects up and have investors and lenders understand these projects quicker.
The recent $175 million loan from the Asian Development Bank, what will that facilitate at Mytrah?
It will go towards financing some of our current wind projects that are under execution and also our solar projects. I mean, this is a very important step for Mytrah. Also, one is it gives access to a much larger pool of debt capital that is international, and also it helps to improve our internal corporate governance standards at which we're considering environmental factors in our project execution.
And we don't usually talk about numbers, but just a financial outlook for Mytrah. If you can just share some broad numbers at the top line, the bottom line level, which could come through in the months ahead.
Well, it's hard to say about the months ahead, but at 1 gigawatt, you're producing almost 2,000 crores of top line. And if we are able to finance our projects well, it's a very profitable venture.
You alluded to the fact that the government set targets for renewable are ambitious, and everybody says yes, they are ambitious. But now that we get our teeth into execution, do you fear that they're unachievable?
No, I think they're very achievable. I think it's going to be a question of, is it going to take 6 years or is it going to take a little bit longer? I think the key constraints are the actual distribution network or the last mile connectivity. While we have a very ambitious target for generation, we also need to have as ambitious a target or as driven a target and effort for building the distribution network and for connecting our grids within states, for example. I mean, there are states where there is an abundance of solar energy or wind, but the need for power may be in some other place. Even intrastate, we still need to figure out some of these things. And the second is also, I would say, the more critical aspect is access to debt capital. I mean, unless we are able to resolve this issue, I don't think we'll be able to grow at the rate at which we would like to and where it is certainly feasible to. But I also believe that these will change very dramatically. I remember when we started in 2010, we were the first company of its kind in India where we were focusing on building utility-scale renewable and as the only business for us. And we went to lenders. At that time, lenders would not lend more than 7 years or 10 years at a time. They needed the balance sheet, corporate balance sheet support. Today, it's 15, 18-year loans, and it's far more traditionally accepted industry now. So I think it's a matter of time, and I do that these issues will get resolved along the way, and there is no reason why we shouldn't be adding 10 gigawatts or 20 gigawatts every year. We've seen the examples in China and other countries where they have overcome similar hurdles, if not more, and have been able to do this.
Well, we look forward to more frequent conversations with you, Ravi Kailas, as the impact of renewables in India's power needs grows. Thanks very much for joining us this afternoon on NDTV. Pleasure talking